So what's one of the most important details to get right here at Alta or Aussie Modern? You guessed it right, our stair detail. That it allows us to be able to have a clear path of travel from mostly private living upstairs and our graciously appointed indoor-outdoor living downstairs. Today, I want to talk about our stair detail and how important it is to our project to ensure that it's done right. So as mentioned, stairs are an absolute critical component to building a two-story home. Not only do they have to function appropriately, that provide ease of access and fluid movement throughout the home, we have to ensure that they meet code requirements, are aesthetically pleasing, and meet the overall design intent that we are trying to achieve in this modern build. Now, I'll be the first to say that our architect had the right idea in mind by designing this home with a set of floating stairs that would be associated on a monorail that by far was probably the best option that we could have for this house. However, due to cost constraints and multiple quotes for a floating stair monorail system, it simply wasn't in the budget, as it stood between $40,000 and $60,000 to be able to have this stair detail come together. So right off the bat, after getting some preliminary quotes very early on in the architectural design sets, we knew that this was an area that we had to think of a separate solution that would be more cost effective, and this took place during our interior design visits with Urban Revival to be able to ensure that we still had a minimalistic design, provided open and gracious spaces, but also needed to ensure that we would hit an appropriate budget. So I want to discuss some of the things that we did to value engineer this stair set that ultimately dropped our stair pricing down to about 25% of the cost of a floating stair detail, while still providing the volume-based design that we were trying to achieve within this entry hallway. So ultimately we opted for a floating staircase that was achievable by integrating some LSLs, which would be laminated stranded lumber, for our stringers that would ultimately allow us to be able to achieve an alternative to the original design intent. So I want to talk about the pros and cons of going with this stair system. The first item is, with a traditional stair set, you would typically have a pony wall that would run the exterior edge of this that would allow for additional storage capacity underneath this typically unutilized area within the home. And other than that, I really don't feel like there was many other benefits to the design of this home by enclosing this stairwell. So let me talk about the reasons why we felt like this was a happy medium. So while we don't get closed storage, we still increase the overall footprint of the floor plan. And this allows for some unique design features that can be associated in this space. So first and foremost, we have a gracious entryway that will be appointed with a full glass panel for a pivot door as well as a side light. But there's not a lot of room in the entryway for a drop zone or other additional entryway decor. Now this space can be utilized for a small desk, it could be a small home office area, a homework station, or simply a space that you could be able to present some of your most favorite artwork within your collection. The second item is it keeps the overall design intent by having a more minimalistic detail that allows for more volume within the space and allows for more light transfer from the large picture window that encompasses one of the most important features here in the Arcadia market, which is amazing views of Camelback Mountain. But for now, we want to focus on the overall benefits that this stair detail brings to the design, and the residual lighting that's provided will not go unnoticed by the future homeowner. Now, while we don't get a true floating design where you would typically have a 3 or 4 inch gap in between each stair, we're still able to integrate a 1 inch tread and riser that will match the oak flooring that will be associated on the second story above. This pronounced stair detail will be coupled with the clean minimalistic lines that are found in the majority of our homes by encapsulating the rest of this stairwell in a clean level 4 or level 5 smooth finish drywall. So now let's get to some of the complexities with stairs in general. Now, stairs are obviously one of the areas that's going to be traveled the most throughout the home. We actually have 3 guest bedrooms that reside upstairs, as well as a family room and an outdoor terrace that overlooks Camelback Mountain. So as you can tell, there'll not only be a ton of living that goes on upstairs, but there'll also be a ton of entertaining as well. We need to ensure that these stairs are bulletproof and that they're going to stand the test of time. The first thing that we did to accomplish this was to integrate the LSLs for additional structural rigidity. And on these stair stringers, we included 4 stair stringers because of the width of the stairs that split the distance of our entryway between a 5-foot walkway and a 4-foot stairway. However, our PM was quick to note that there was a fair amount of movement that still existed within this stairwell, as indicated when you jump up and down on the middle of this stairway. Now, due to the design intent of that minimalistic level 4, level 5 smooth finish that we'll be integrating into this stair detail, this will create a lot of issues with the overall movement of this stairwell. The last thing that we want or need would be any nail pops or cracking within the drywall that will be residing just below our stringers and finishing off our detail. So the first thing we did was we talked to our framing company to determine some options that would allow for us to make these stairs truly bulletproof. So the first item we want to do is we want to strengthen the overall rigidity of this stairwell. And our framing company mentioned they felt that a 2x6 additional stringer would help with the overall rigidity and potentially solve any future problems that might occur within the home. But simply put, I wasn't completely sold on this being the best and final solution to ensure that we wouldn't have warranties to address after a couple years of home ownership. And so I want to give a huge shout out to Ken, which runs the Phoenix Woodworking School that I've been going to for a couple of years. And whenever I have specific details like this that come up in the construction industry, I typically float them by Ken because he's been building for over 6 decades and has a specific interest in finish and trim packages as well as building furniture, and always has amazing insight on some of these specific details. The original conversation went something like this. I told Ken that when I lived back in California that my dad had decided to put some additional gussets in the crawl space below the home to be able to help with structural rigidity, especially due to the seismic activity that we have in California. And so I mentioned this to Ken, and he said, well, instead of a gusset system, which he felt wouldn't allow us to be able to get the rigidity we were looking for, he wanted to go with a strut or a brace system on every third stairwell that essentially creates an X pattern at the riser that will ultimately bridge the gap with a 1x2 that will be toe-nailed to each one of these LSL stringers, essentially bonding them together and creating more of a truss-like design with interlocked webbing that will help this staircase stand the test of time and reduce any potentials for warranties in the future. I thought this was a great idea, so we'll either incur an additional change order for our framing company to take care of this item, or we'll end up having our in-house construction techs take care of this critical component before moving on from roughing onto the drywall and finishing stage. As always, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to overall design details and how they might meet the functional and structural requirements that are necessary for Rebuild the Block to put their stamp of approval on any home that we're responsible for building. Continue to follow along our Alta Aussie Modern to be able to see how this detail and many other details throughout the home finish out. As always, thanks for following. If you have any questions, reach out to us directly at any time, and have a great day.